Welcome back to Only Talk Sports, and we talk sports every single day, or at least we try to. I'm Roach Jeffrey. Subscribe to the channel if you like sports content. Hit that notification bell so you never miss another video. Now, the Gonzaga Bulldogs, they have been really quiet in the transfer portal so far in this college basketball transfer portal cycle, but not anymore. They just landed two splash additions back-to-back on the same day. Ron Nembhard, the former Creighton guard, has decided to transfer to the Gonzaga Bulldogs, and that's not it as well. They also have brought in Graham Ike, the former Wyoming center. Both of these players are going to be huge additions for Gonzaga next year, and could they potentially have Gonzaga as a title contender next season, and how much will they be able to improve the Gonzaga Bulldogs overall? Now, Mark Few, a lot of people had some question marks with Mark Few. Was he going to be able to continue to have Gonzaga toward the top of college basketball? Things seem to be starting to trend in the wrong direction for Gonzaga the last couple years. They seem to be losing their footing as one of the best teams in college basketball, and a lot of people always question them for being in the West Coast Conference. Were they truly a legit basketball team? But they've made two national championship games, and Mark Few has done a great job overall, despite never having won a national title yet. But the roster had a lot of question marks. This past season, Drew Timme, he was a stud, he was a great basketball player, but the guard play for Gonzaga was really weak. They did not have the guards that they've had in the past, like Jalen Suggs, and also having Andrew Nembhard and some of the other players that they've got. And speaking of Andrew Nembhard, his brother, Ryan Nembhard, is transferring to Gonzaga. And I think a big reason why Ryan Nembhard is transferring to Gonzaga is because his brother Andrew Nembhard went from Florida to Gonzaga and had a lot of success with the Bulldogs a couple years ago, and he made the NBA draft and was able to get drafted fairly highly after playing for Gonzaga, which probably played a big role in why Ryan Nembhard decided to transfer to Gonzaga. And Ryan Nembhard, he's a 6', 170-pound guard, and he had a lot of success with the Creighton Blue Jays and Greg McDermott this past season. It's really unfortunate how his Creighton career ended with a foul that they called on him in the Elite Eight against San Diego State. That was a really tough foul at the end of that game, but besides that, Ryan Nembhard is a great guard. He averaged 12.1 points per game, 4 rebounds, and 4.8 assists last season for the Creighton Blue Jays, so he is a do-it-all player. Even at 6 foot, he still rebounds at a high level. He's a great passer and facilitator to his teammates when he was with the Creighton Blue Jays, and he scored at a fairly high level. He shot 43.2% from the field last season, 35.6% from the three-point line, and 87.1% from the free throw line. So you're getting a really good free throw shooter, a really good three-point shooter, and a solid overall scorer. He can get in the lane, take mid-range shots, and he can get all the way to the rim. He has fairly good speed, and he's just a really solid floor general overall. And I think this is a massive addition for Gonzaga in so many ways, because Gonzaga last year, their guard play was weak. Nolan Hickman, he really struggled overall. He should be back for Gonzaga. Who knows? He might enter the transfer portal now that Ron Nembhard is coming in, but we don't know what he's going to do. But as of now, he will be returning to Gonzaga. But he struggled last season for the Bulldogs at the guard position. Malachi Smith, he's testing the NBA draft waters, and he was a guy that also struggled for Gonzaga. I think that Gonzaga's guard play was really weak last season, and it was one of the worst guard performances in a season for a Mark Few team in a long time. And Rasir Bolton, he had a solid season. He was probably the best guard for Gonzaga last year, but he's out of eligibility. And Hunter Salas, he's in the transfer portal, so there's a lot of roster flux at the guard position for the Gonzaga Bulldogs, and getting Ryan Nembhard in from Creighton definitely fixes all of those issues and more. He's definitely going to be a great ball handler for Gonzaga next season, and he's going to pass the ball to his teammates and make all of the players around him better. This is one of the biggest additions for any team in the college basketball transfer portal, and it definitely makes Gonzaga a top 20 to top 15 team in college basketball next year, and they could potentially be a title contender if everything goes their way. But not only did you get Ryan Nembhard at the point guard position, you also got Graham Ike, the former Wyoming center, who's 6'9", 255 pounds, and he will directly be able to slide into the massive hole that Drew Timme is leaving with the Gonzaga Bulldogs. And Graham Ike, he was hurt all of last season for the Wyoming Cowboys. He did not play. He was out all year with an injury, but he will be back and healthy this year. And in the last season he played for Wyoming, he averaged 19.5 points per game, 9.6 rebounds, and 1.3 assists on 51% field goal shooting, 27.3% three-point shooting, and 71.6% from the free throw line. And he is a pretty solid shooter overall. In the post, he is great, being able to hit those jump hook shots and be able to bully his way down low and be able to score. I think he'll be able to dominate the West Coast Conference because of the fact he was able to dominate the Mount West when he was available for Wyoming and healthy. He should be able to dominate the West Coast Conference. He might have some issues against bigger competition because even though he did shoot a couple threes and make them, he doesn't do it on a regularity. He will have to improve on that front if he wants to have a lot of success against bigger competition. And he's a bit undersized at 6'9", but he's a huge body, and he's a pretty solid free throw shooter for his size. So that's really good for Gonzaga as well, that he's not a liability at the line. But I think that Graham Ike, will he be as good as Drew Timme was last season? No, probably not, but he still is a great addition for Gonzaga because they have massive shoes to fill at the center position, and Graham Ike can slide in, and if he averages around 13 to 15 points per game for Gonzaga next season, then even though he won't be as good as Drew Timme, he'll still be really solid overall for Gonzaga next year. And I think getting him and Ryan Nembhard vastly makes the ceiling so much higher for the Gonzaga Bulldogs next year. And Ryan Nembhard, I expect him to average around 12, maybe 13 points per game for Gonzaga next season. He'll probably have the exact same amount of production at Creighton, and he might do even better being in the West Coast Conference. And by the time they get to the NCAA tournament, Ryan Nembhard will probably be humming and really getting everything together for Gonzaga, and he'll be able to set up his teammates at a high level. And the Gonzaga roster is still in a lot of flux right now. Anton Watson, he has not announced whether he's coming back for Gonzaga or leaving. He would be a huge re-addition for Gonzaga. He's a really good basketball player overall, and he definitely improved this past season. Efton Reed, he's in the portal, and I think that loss is not going to be as bad for Gonzaga because you're getting Graham Ike in. You're also losing Julian Strawther to the NBA, which is really tough. He was a great forward for Gonzaga last year, and obviously he hit the big shot to beat UCLA in the Sweet 16, but still, Gonzaga also has Ben Gregg coming back. Ben Gregg is a forward that I think could slot potentially in to that Julian Strawther role and be able to improve. Maybe he'll be able to play next to Graham Ike, who knows, but he definitely was an improving player, and he has a lot of game, and I think he has a lot of upside as well. And the Gonzaga Bulldogs, these aren't the only two transfers they brought in. Eastern Washington transfer Steele Venters. He's a 6'7" tall guard who averaged 15.3 points per game for Eastern Washington last season. He'll probably be a guy that can average around 8 to 10 points per game for Gonzaga next year, but that's still a solid addition overall, and it goes to show you Mark Few still has a massive pull in the transfer portal, being able to bring in guys like Steele Venters and now Ryan Nembhard and Graham Ike, both players that a lot of programs wanted. Tommy Lloyd wanted Ryan Nembhard badly. Tommy Lloyd recruited Andrew Nembhard to Gonzaga, so it would have made sense for Ryan Nembhard to go to Arizona, but he chose Gonzaga, and Graham Ike going from Wyoming to Gonzaga is a huge addition as well. I think that the Gonzaga roster has the potential to be even better next season without Drew Timme, and it's not because Drew Timme wasn't a great player, because he was, but the guard talent for Gonzaga last season was very weak, but Ryan Nembhard is going to fix all of those issues and more, and Graham Ike will be able to come in and be able to fill as much as possible the big shoes that Drew Timme is leaving. But Ben Gregg, if he improves for Gonzaga next year, that will be huge as well. If Steele Venters provides some solid production for Gonzaga all around, I think he'll be a really good player as well for Gonzaga. And if Anton Watson returns, Gonzaga potentially has a team that could maybe go to the Elite Eight and maybe further if they have a lot of success and be able to get all of this talent to mesh together. And maybe Mark Few's not done in the transfer portal yet. Who knows? He might be able to get another player or two to be able to come into the Gonzaga Bulldogs and make him an even better team next year. But as is, getting Ryan Nembhard and Graham Ike are both massive additions for the Gonzaga Bulldogs. They should both really help out Gonzaga. Ryan Nembhard at the guard position and Graham Ike at the center position. Ryan Nembhard might be the best guard that Gonzaga has since Jalen Suggs, and he'll definitely be able to help out the Bulldogs next year. And while Graham Ike might not be as good as Drew Timme, he'll still have a lot of success next season for Gonzaga. And while I do think that both players are great additions for Gonzaga, I will have to say that Ryan Nembhard probably is the bigger addition because Gonzaga definitely has needed a lot of guard depth, and Mark Few was able to get that this offseason in the transfer portal. I really like what Mark Few's doing in the transfer portal, and he might not even be done yet. Subscribe to the channel if you like sports content. Like this video down below. Comment down below what you think about Ryan Nembhard and Graham Ike both transferring to the Gonzaga Bulldogs. Which player you think will help out Gonzaga more next season, and how good of a job you think Mark Few's doing in the transfer portal this offseason. Follow me on Twitter as well. Link is in the description, and I will see you next time.